Today we work on a package tray and sound system for Michael's Mk3. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We met with Michael, the owner of the Mk3 behind me right now, this past week, and we discussed the addition of a sound system in his Factory 5 Mk3. We've done these before. They have varying results. You can spend a lot of money on putting a sound system in one of these and be pretty disappointed. The car is an open roadster for the most, in most cases, and trying to get sound to your ears over the wind noise and the engine noise that these cars produce is sometimes difficult. This car is going to have a hardtop. We're doing the APE or APE hardtop on this, and it's going to have windows. That's one of the reasons we've gone to such lengths to try to contain the heater blower motor so that we're not pulling in carbon monoxide from under the hood. So this car is going to be a little bit different than the last one where we installed a sound system in it, and we'll see how everything works out in the end. For right now, I'll take you guys along and show you all the steps that we've gone through in order to build all of the walls of the speaker box out of aluminum, putting together the recess for the package tray so that the roll bars are not contained within the speaker box, and some of the pitfalls you may run into while trying to lay out your metal panels if you go ahead and want to do this on your own. All right, a little farther along, you can see now that we've got the panel for the speakers trimmed, we also cut the holes for the 6x9 speakers. Looking through the package tray, once this is all carpeted, I think we're going with black carpeting on this. So in the past when we've done black carpeting in the package tray with the black grills on the speakers pretty much disappear. You really have to look for them. You have to look in behind the seats to see them. So they'll be camouflaged pretty well. What we're doing now is working on getting the divider for the rear panel. This rear panel is going to be removable. So what we're going to end up doing is we've got some L brackets that we've made on the two corners here. And we're going to make an L bracket for the bottom as well. And all that will get screwed with trim screws when that back panel goes on. What we're going to do to stiffen up this panel right here, because you can see it's kind of wobbly, it's going to get heat and sound mount on both sides of it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually make a spacer, for lack of a better word. And what that's going to do is it's going to run from this point here to this point here across and have an angle, a 90-degree angle bent on it, which will really firm this up. And then it's going to come around the speaker and then tie in over to here with the same thing. It'll have a 90-degree break on the end of it. So once that's in, all this will be really firm, and it'll give us a place to not only stiffen this up, but also the rear panel that is removable from here over to the other side will have a top rail up in here that it can screw to as well. So as this continues on, I'll be bringing you guys back to see all that. All right, a little farther along, we've got the box pretty much completed. we've covered the front and the inside portion of the box with the heat and sound mat. We'll finish up the rest of the package tray here once we get this speaker box or amplifier box or whatever we're calling it now finished. And what we're working on now is the back panel. And so what I wanted to go over on this is that the sides of the trunk are actually at an angle. They're farther out on the top than they are on the bottom. They kind of lean out at the top. And so on the front of the speaker box, where we're going to be stationary, we're not going to have a removable panel, it's easy to take up that gap with, sorry about that, with our corner pieces. So if you look, the actual panel, the front panel itself, ends here. But in the corner, this 90-degree break piece that we put in here as our fastening backer for the front takes up that space. In the back, we're going to want that to go all the way to the wall. Now, the other thing when we're making this panel is we're going to make it 1/8 of an inch shorter from side to side, and we're going to make it 1/8 of an inch shorter from top to bottom. And that's because we're going to have both the heat and sound mat on the sidewalls and on the floor, plus carpeting. So what we'll do when we mock up this back panel, we're actually going to put a couple of flat washers on the ground when we mock it up, the ground of the floor of the trunk. And then that's going to raise the panel up enough so that when we get our heat and sound mat and our carpet in here, later when we go to put the panel in and it's all carpeted, it'll actually go back in the holes that we are going to be drilling for all of the fasteners, those black washer head wafer screws that we're going to be using to fasten the back onto this. So if you look, other things that we've done, we've also tried to put the heat and sound mat in every spot that we can inside the speaker box. It's even up underneath. You guys can see right there. We've got it on the top. We've got another layer on top of it that's going to face the inside of the trunk. We've got some on the back wall of the partition for the package tray. Pretty much everything that is going to be exposed, we want to put heat and sound mat on, because we're trying to eliminate any possibility of any rattles. We don't have a super high-end amplifier or super high-end speakers, but at the same time, when it starts to rattle, it's just annoying. So we're trying to do everything we can to eliminate that. The amplifier is mounted. What we did is we ran some 832s screws in from the front side. We nutted them, and then we put the amplifier on there with another set of 832 nuts on all four corners. So it's good and secure. We're going to leave it in there for now. We also put a grommet in the bottom right here so that we can pass our wires through. We're going to have a number 10 ground, a number 10 feed wire, and then we're going to have like a 16 gauge, something like that, for a trigger wire that's actually going to go to our ignition. So I'll bring you guys back here in a little while. I'm working on cutting this back panel right now, but since I have this all laid out, what I did is I actually put center marks. So I measured from side to side. This was easy because I ended up with 36 inches. And so I marked the center on the bottom. And then what I did is I took sorry about that, framing square, transferred my line up to the top. It wasn't quite long enough. So I took the combination square, finished up the line, and then what I did is I measured 18 inches either way, of course, to get the center line of 36 inches. This center line ended up with this side, the right side, being 18 3/8 for the top, and the other side is 18 1/8. So you can see, not only are they leaned out, but they're not even the same. So when you get into measuring stuff on the car like this, don't be surprised that the car isn't symmetric. It's just the nature of these cars, and you're going to find that you're going to have to find a happy spot in your OCD in order to finish these up, because if you want to get everything perfectly square and plumb and level and having the same measurement from the right side of the car to the left side of the car, you're going to drive yourself nuts. So I'm going to work on this back panel, and I'll bring you guys back here in just a few seconds. Okay guys, I am working on this back panel, and it just occurred to me that I can show you guys how you can lay out your either your rivet spacing, or in this case we're going to be doing the black washer head trim screws. What I'd like on this is to get the screws as close to 4 inches on center as I can, but the panel doesn't lay out that way. So no matter how you lay out the measurements, right? This is approximately a 36-inch long panel, but if you don't want the screws on the very edge, right? So I like to bring my screws in about at least a half an inch on a panel like this, where the flange that I'm screwing into is 1 inch wide. So what you can do is, this right here is the line, the half-inch line that I'm going to use to screw, to lay out my screws on this side, and I've got the same thing on this side. And I'm going to use that kind of as my guide against the bottom and the top that I've already laid out across the panel. I'm going to take my yardstick, this is my yardstick straight edge that I use, and I'm going to put it down on this corner right here of my layout line, and I'm going to put the other edge up here on this line of my layout line for the top screws. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark at the 4-inch line all the way up. So I'm going to mark at 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. You can see I've made these little tick marks all the way up. So essentially what I've done is I've just shortened the gap of my 4-inch spacing by a little bit by running it on this angle. Then what you can do is take a square, mark it where your little tick mark is. Not a good representation. We'll move you over here so you can see it. My little tick mark right there, where I marked my 4-inch spacing, and then transfer that line to the top and the bottom, and then just do that all the way down. So you'll see when I'm all said and done, I'm not at 4 inches, but I'm at, let's see, where's a good spot to measure? I'm pretty darn close. I'm like 3 7/8 or 3 5/16. So by doing it that way, I still maintain my 4-inch, close to 4-inch spacing, but it allows me to lay out both the top and the bottom at the same time. What I'll do on the edge, I've marked the top. I don't want my screw to be any higher than 6.5 inches, so that's going to be my tick mark there. And so with 4-inch spacing, that's going to mean I'm going to probably have one more screw down here. So I'm going to work from the top down, mark that at 4 inches, and that's going to be it. So I'll bring you guys back as soon as I'm getting ready to cleco this panel in place. Alright, so we've got the back panel all clecoed in place now, and this is one of those projects when you're doing aluminum panels that you're going to want to put a cleco in every hole that you've drilled for a rivet, simply because the panel itself has no rigidity. So on most of the other panels that we've made for the speaker box, they have a 90-degree break on them somewhere. The corner pieces, the front piece, if you remember, has a break that is 90 degrees where it goes down and attaches to the floor. This panel has none of that. And so as you're putting this in, it's going to want to bow and move and everything else. So what I did was I put some washers. I stacked 2 washers. I think these are 3/8 washers, flat washers, on top of one another in this corner and over in this corner. And what that allowed me to do was hold the panel up off of the floor just a little bit, and later on when we go and put the heat and sound mat and the carpeting in here it'll allow us to get this panel to fit down in there without having to trim the panel later and not having the screws that we're going to be putting this line up. So again, I put a Cleco in every spot, and so that way the panel, it stays pretty rigid. Remember, we're going to put heat and sound mat on both sides of this panel, and then it'll get carpeting on the trunk side of the panel. So it's going to be a lot more rigid by the time we get it all finished up. But yeah, this is coming out really nice. Don't know if I'm going to bring you guys back. About the only thing that I have left to do today is to put the speakers into the holes that are in the front and mark the locations for the screw holes where the speakers are going to mount. And I'm going to have to do that more than once. The speakers are really only going to go in for 5 minutes while I mark the holes and drill them. At the end of the project, as we put the speakers back, maybe I'll bring you guys back or cover this in another video, showing you how everything finished up. The other thing that I did is this back panel, if you can see, is at a different height than the front panel. And what we're going to do on the front panel here is shorter than the bulkhead panel here. This bulkhead does not get bulb seal in the center section of it. It only gets bulb seal on the very ends right here, and then around the edge right here. And then of course it gets it all the way across the top of the trunk. So what I'm going to do here is, by making this panel a little bit shorter, I'm going to be able to put bulb seal across the top of here and have that seal to the body, and try to keep the sound going out. And on the back here, the reason I left it short is because I put these 3 ports, for lack of a better word, and then I've left the N area open just so that the speakers inside there are going to have enough air to do their thing. So essentially what we're doing is we're kind of making the actual trunk part of the speaker box without just leaving the backs of the speakers open to the trunk. So we'll see how well that turns out. It's debatable whether, you know, putting a sound system in a car like this that's loud and you know, really has a lot of road noise, whether or not that's going to work out. This car is going to have a top though, so hopefully with the top on and the windows closed, the stereo will be somewhat effective. So all right, so you can see that we've got the rear panel fit and Clecoed, and just in the corners right now. We're going to be taking this apart. We've still got to put the heat and sound mat in the trunk and in the rest of the car. So the panel's just kind of on there right now for you guys to see. And then around the inside, we'll see if we can peek you guys in there. It's all finished on the inside as well. So it came out really nice. It's nice and solid. Once we get the carpeting on in the trunk and in the cockpit, it's going to be, you know, even better. But for now, we've got this thing pretty much wrapped up. Okay, everybody, I think that's going to wrap things up for today. We got the speaker box probably as far along as we're going to get it for right now. We're simply waiting on other things. We're going to have to get the carpet installed in the cockpit and in the trunk, and we've got to get the wiring finished up. So you will probably see some of the wiring, like for the amplifier and stuff like that, in a future video, since I'll probably include that in that, you know, in the wiring, finishing up the wiring in the car. But as far as the speakers go and putting it all together and this, you know, getting sound out of it and all that, it's probably going to be a while because we've still got to get the car to upholstery. I think it's going to go to upholstery sometime in October. So we'll bring you guys back and kind of give you a wrap up of the sound system and the package tray and everything like that once we get the upholstery all finished up. So again, thanks for watching. Appreciate your viewership, and we'll see you guys all next time. I almost forgot. Have a great day.